technically be used in Gemini as well too. It's just, okay, you need something that has good memory to follow up. Otherwise, you're just going to keep rinsing and repeating this same prompt all over again. But yeah, pretty much any AI tool.
All right, I hear you. Thanks.
Of course. All right, then for your ad copy testing sheet, this is just going to help you create the Excel sheet here. I just included what I've done before for my accounts, and then this will go through this for yourself and your team. So it'd be good to have this with your own sheet, but if not, it can help you create a pre-populated version if you already have one, which is wonderful. And then go down the line for a particular tab where applicable within that given sheet. To start off with, same thing here, I would recommend picking a channel and just focusing on that more, and then expand it to the other channels from there, because it'll make your life a little bit easier. Or you can also add a separate column for different channels. I found it gets a little bit messy, especially with like a wide variety of channels, to have it in like one sheet. So it's good to have the multiple sheets. But yeah, as you can see, it's for all the other applicable channels, and you can add other ones as well too here where applicable with this prompt. So you just create a separate tab, label it whatever you want it to be, and then put in the headers wherever, whatever you want them to be, basically. And then this is a little bit more of the important part for like the actual test concepts. This is the meat and potatoes, if you will. So like I mentioned before with case question, good question, by the way, Claude or ChatGPT is what this is made for. But as long as you have something that has a good memory and that can be adjusted here a little bit over time, that's the key thing for this, because otherwise it's not going to learn from what worked, what didn't, or what you'll need to do is basically just keep that in mind and re-upload it each time, which is pretty tedious, to be honest. So I'd recommend just using one of these like AI tools. Then for these prompts that are kind of outlined in gray here, what's important is you're going to need to put in your own information for these applicable brackets. I wouldn't just put this in blank, because if you have good information in your account, wonderful, it might just fill this stuff in. Otherwise, though, it's going to just put whatever it feels like putting in, which is not the best. And then same thing here. If you can add in some additional information, great. There's no brackets here, of course, but the point is, here's some different concepts that I've generally started with. And then what I like to do is add in some history to say, like, this is what worked, this is what didn't, and define it as this was an emotional trigger that worked, this is one that didn't. So that way Claude knows, because it's not going to be able to read your mind for some of this stuff. The information you put in is going to be great. What's going to be greater is if you can label some of it here for this like ideas section. And then what it's going to do with this prompt is rinse and repeat for various concepts from there. You can put as many or as few as you like. I tend to stick to 5. If you're creating more over like a 3-month period, 15 to 20 is excellent, depending upon what your ad spend is or how much content you're putting out there. You might go through this in a few weeks, or this might take you more like 6 months to a year, depending upon the size of your business and your marketing budget. And then this is going to take what you made in part 2, populate it, so that way you can get some information into your sheet. Sometimes you need to rerun this a few times. I would suggest having a saved version of this sheet as a backup, just to be safe when you're initially doing it, but then to remind it that it's not doing it the right way and creating a separate sheet, I would give it the sheet as like an Excel or CSV and say, hey, I want this filled out, and then have it fill the sheet out from there. I found most of the time it works. And then if not, worst case, I just copy paste it into my original sheet. But 95% of the time it's worked out very well, for me at least. And then what it will do is also create the channel specific copy on top of it. Normally you should have this before in the third part. So like make sure you have it in the third part as well too, just so you can see it and adjust it accordingly as you need to. Eventually over time you might not need to, but I found this alleviates what some people would call AI slop. So like instead of that, you're working with it a little bit more hands-on. You save a lot of time, which is great, but at the same time, you can get a lot more out of that time. And then let's see, besides that, we have some things for quality control. I'd also recommend asking any applicable questions for your industry or anything of that nature. That could be very useful as well too. Or if there's like certain things with compliance or things of that nature, just to make sure like you really don't have that in your copy. One example of this is, for example, I work with a gym software tool, and they really don't like doing work with martial arts gyms for some reason. So I try to make sure that the AI copy doesn't have anything with martial arts related to it whatsoever. So I put that in the project guidelines. But also it's good to ask as well to just double check. Then final thing, these are things I like to check at. This is not really an AI thing as much as something in your accounts or where applicable. So in Search Console for SEO, for example, this is part of the ad copy testing doc. This is part of like some of the other stuff in the course as well too. But I would suggest going through some of this when you're looking through your ad copy testing to make sure it's effectively happening, because Claude can create the ideas, you can implement them, of course, but it's only going to be as good as your test guidelines as well too. So this is kind of some basic test guidelines here, and then same thing here as well too. It gives like some guidance on some of these different measurables. I would fill this out a little bit more when you're testing as well. So when you have your part 2 testing document, it will give you some good feedback on some of the numbers that you're getting there as well. But that's the gist. And then here's kind of like the initial steps to get started at the very end. But that's the prompt overall. A lot of words, wanted to condense it though. So we have more time to go through some examples and any questions, things like that. But anybody have questions on the document or how to use?
No, pretty straightforward. Thanks, Oliver.
Oh, of course. I tried to make it as straightforward as possible. Basically, I just wanted to make it like really, really regimented. The key thing here is that you're going to need to go through and edit it. As long as you do that, you should be in good shape. Speaking of, does anybody have like an example that they want me to run through for applicable ad copy or anything of that nature?
I'm just thinking a lot of us probably haven't acquired a business yet. And so, you start to think about, well, like a lot of this is oriented for building your business. Like, so once you acquire it, you're thinking about how to use this to kind of, grow your business. But I'm just thinking like what you do now, perhaps a personal brand example, or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, we could go through this example a little bit more here. What I wanted to do, you could also add in the site content, things of that information. You have a prospect as well too, for example. That could be helpful in general. Let me see. I'm going to try to add another one here from one of my clients at least, but we can go through that. In the meantime, does anybody else have anything they might want to run through? That is kind of the point though, is once you buy the business, this can help you save time, and or this is something where through the course here, which obviously you'll have a link to this afterwards, either you can get cheap course, get all the prompts, things of that nature. You can run through this yourself. If you want to set everything up yourself and do it all, wonderful. It's at a low cost for you, which is great. There's the premium member support as well too. So if you already have a little bit of a team there and you have some buffer when it comes to the EBITDA. Oh, yes, Nick, your question.
Yeah, going back to the fact that a lot of us are just looking at buying businesses right now. I've seen businesses where they're like, oh, we carry a premium to buy us because we already have SEO set up. We already have it all. We run all these things. What would you do to diagnose from the outside whether they truly have it dialed in or they bought an ad on Yelp?
Yeah, I got you. There's an audit tool within this course, which is one thing. If you're just looking at it for your business, or for like buying the business, a few things I like to look at. So for example, for ad presence and things of that nature, there's some free tools where you can see visibility. So let me bring up the Facebook ad library, for example. All right. So this is a neat free tool it allows you so you can plug in the company and see what they've been running over the past 90 days. A little more than that as well too, because sometimes there's some legacy ads and things of that nature that just work really well. But I'd run through that. Google, for Google Ads, they have a similar transparency tool. Usually if they have a good number of ads, it's a sign they have a good amount of budget as well. So that's kind of a way you can see that. You could ask for access to their accounts during due diligence. So if they're under LOI, I would suggest doing that for sure. Because like you should be able to take a look under the hood, see what's going on, and then do a little bit of a spot check there. So that's like one basic way to say it. So if like, I'm pretty sure like it'd be very absurd if like they said they had this very thorough presence and it's just a Yelp ad. Because you could just, for example, Google them. You can use tools like Ahref or if you're taking notes, like Ahref and super like SEMrush. Okay, cool. SEMrush. You can plug in their site to see what their presence looks like. So again, those are all just very basic free things. Like that's like a minor check to say like, okay, do they kind of have something going on? Like, are they full of shit, for lack of a better word? Or is this something where I could see them actually having a reasonable marketing presence, like they said during like the prospectus or like during certain calls? But
oh yeah, this is helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. But yeah, last, you should ask them as well too if you're under LOI with them. Like it's a very basic thing. Like for some of the home service companies, like some are a little less technical versus others. So they might just not know how to log into certain things. So I wouldn't take that as like a red flag, if you will. It's more just like a beige, like part of doing business. Like when I've done audits for a variety of these like companies, it just takes time for some of these things. But yeah, again, that's how I would do it. And then the point of this course is like, once you go through that, either if you're going to do it, this will help you save time to do it. Either you go through the course and go through these different things, or me and team will help you set it up over a year. And what that can do is, and this is like where there's a lot more value, is if you have an agency that the company's paying, they're not doing much, and you're kind of sick of paying them, what this will do is you just pay me and team for a year. We set everything up. We either show you or somebody on our team, say if you have a marketing specialist or marketing manager, how to run things. And then we hand things off to you. And either you can just run things in-house from there, which is wonderful, or you bring us on monthly here and there for certain things like, say, maintenance checkups. For some businesses that are seasonal, like HVAC or roofing, for example, it's good to bring an agency on like ours. I wouldn't really call it an agency. It's more like AI education, but you can bring us on for a month or two to do the work and then help you scale things up or scale things back down when things are a little more challenging. But yeah, that's the use case essentially. And then getting back to testing, a few things that we can do here. So I don't really want to go through too much client information like that, but I can go through like one example here just with like a website. But do you guys have any other questions, kind of like Nick's question related to like LOIs or things you're looking at from a marketing perspective? Like I know that's not quite on topic with like the AI materials. This is more like once you're in the final phases, this is something to consider for your own cost savings and your edification. But yeah, anything else like that for like deals you're looking at? No. Okay, cool. All right, let's go into an example. So one of my clients, like a little bit more well known, is like the Met Museum. So they're, if you don't know, it's a museum in New York. They have over 5,000 years of 5,000 years of art-inspired history, and a lot of that they have different apparel, jewelry, things like that. And the proceeds go to help support the museum, maintaining the artwork, helping kids in the area and like kids across the country go see it, experience it, be inspired, things of that nature. But basically, we'll go through some of that here. So let me bring this example up real quick. And mind you, this is like, I don't want to go too much into like the specific ad copy strategy I have here necessarily, but more just going into the example. So let's say we're trying to sell a little more home decor, So say tableware here, for example, to very new. There. So this is more of the dry and dirty, simple way of doing it. I recommend having your sheet. What you do instead is just upload it here and then go through this same process again, like just give the little prompt here. Just a random example. Sometimes they'll go through each one of these one at a time as well too. You can in your prompt get it to ask you all the questions at once, sometimes one time. I really don't mind it as much, but some of you do. There's a way to work around it. For example, as you can see, it's pretty quick overall. And this is where I'd normally put in a little more information on the value props. For example, like the fact that it's confirming it is really good here. I would put anything specific to what you know has worked or relative to the business that you're buying or that you've bought. Just one more question, and then it should spit out the ad copy test ideas. And there you go. As you can see, very quick, very efficient. I think the key thing here is you need a little human intervention to be able to figure out what works versus what doesn't. And that's where the course will help you a little bit more. If you have a little bit more of a know-how or some sort of like strategic advantage is kind of gone through in like Acquira's course, that should help you a lot with this ad copy testing as well too. If like you know your industry a lot more versus another buyer, for example, that's going to help you a lot with this prompt as well, because basically you can use your business knowledge to improve some of these different things. And that gives a little bit of a summary. But yeah, that's the gist overall here. And that's what I've got for this week. Relatively quick, but that was kind of the point of it, is that this is quick, efficient, works well for a variety of creative, and you'll have access to this right after the call. But is there anything else we want to go through? I can go through anything related to like marketing or relative to like businesses you're looking at. But besides that, if you don't, that's all I have to present for this week.
Nothing for me. No, this has been great. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, of course, okay. Happy to help. And if you guys do have any questions, feel free to email me or set up a little bit of time. Happy to talk one-on-one about a specific deal or something that you might be looking at if you do have questions later. But yeah, now's your time. All right, Nick, what do you got?
Oliver, I do have a question. I don't know if you go into this level, but when you're comparing two different ads and going, okay, how are these doing better for each other? It's early days. You don't have a lot of click-throughs or other variables. How are you doing any statistical significance tests, like with p-values, anything like that? Because I've seen that ChatGPT doesn't always do the math correctly, but setting up a spreadsheet isn't always fun either. Have you delved into that world at all? Talking an AI slant on this?
I have, to be honest, I haven't needed to. So one thing is, it is a pain in the butt to set up the sheet, but once you do, it's one and done, which is the wonderful thing about like those sheets. I've done that for certain larger accounts, especially when the client asks for it. Usually there's certain metrics and certain volumes that I look at. So ideally 2,000 to 5,000 impressions over a week's time is ideal, or like say over a month if we're talking about statistically practical versus statistically significant. The click volume can be a little lower, but assuming that you have the time run that the ad has been shown to 2,000 to 5,000 unique people. So with that impressions, like maybe use reach, perhaps if like you're a meta, but that's where like the 5,000 comes into play. So like err on like the higher side when it comes to impressions. I found that's a good initial rule of thumb. And then looking at the click-through rates, one of the first ways to determine it. So was this engaging? Was this something that attracted the attention of somebody and got their interest to click through on it? You can do the same thing with an SEO listing, for example, or email for open rates, things like that. But that's where I would start, and then assume a longer time frame for certain things for conversion actions, especially if it's a higher value conversion action. So something where they're paying over $100, they don't know who you are, or like it's something where they only make this decision, like say, like once a year they get their boiler checked. So once a year they're considering this stuff. Stuff like that comes into play with the ad copy testing too. So that's sort of why I don't really run those like different stats tests and things of that nature. I adjust things off and do it here and there as needed if it's like really something that's crucial. The other thing too is depending upon the account, most accounts nowadays will show certain ads more versus others, because what they do is they run their own formulas for those different things. So like since it's about 2015, they've run these different things. And at first it was a choice where you show the ads evenly, but what will happen over time is it compares how your ad's running relative to similar ads in a similar industry and sees like in your account, okay, what's getting the performance, and then gives more impressions to what it believes will get the performance like you want. So basically, the account will do it a little bit for you. What you want to do in this case is, if one ad didn't get much exposure, so like less than 2,000 impressions over say like a 30-day window, which is like very, very conservative, I would turn that ad on, pause the top performer, which sounds like an odd thing to do. What you're doing instead is getting it a little bit more exposure, and then rinse and repeat over like each day to see how each one performs, and then compare the two over a longer period of time, ideally at least 14 days. But that's the point essentially, is you could run that. The ad accounts kind of do it for you to a certain degree, but also there's certain metrics you can look at with certain rules of thumb. And those are my initial rules of thumb.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's a great point. Is that, I mean, a lot of these systems are so tuned nowadays to help bump it up, and it has its own feedback loop to say, okay, did that work? And they can control that so much better. Yeah, and you're right. You know, you're trying to get an influence. This isn't thousands of people buying a consumer product. This is a person who once every 20 years, hopefully, buys a boiler.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think the other thing too is what happens with accounts is sometimes there's evergreen creative, especially if the business is a little older, been running ads for a while, for like a few years. Sometimes there's an ad or two that just performs like really, really well for some reason. And it's good to keep that ad going. But at the same time, you want to kind of add in new creative throughout. So it's good to kind of swap around, so that way you can see if a brand new concept can improve performance a little bit more. And that's why I made the sheet as well too, because sometimes it's hard to come up with new creative concepts when some ads are just stubbornly really, really good in the account. The other thing for Meta is just food for thought here. You need more ad creative to scale up more. It used to be each ad set was limited to about 4 ads, give or take, depending upon the industry, what you're selling, things like that. Meta recently has removed those caps. And what you can do is to signal to Meta if you have more ad creative, mainly video concepts, but this applies as well too to the text. If you have more unique ad creative, it's a sign that it should show your ads more often to a larger portion of your audience. So that's the other reason as well too, is it helps you create these different ideas. Then you can give this to say a designer or a videographer or whomever applicable. Like there's a variety of different tools out there for these things, and then get more creative made.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, this is Yeah, very helpful. It's a good comparison of like the large amounts flooding into a very, very small amount, and you need to go a little more qualitative, where you have less quantitative to work with. Yeah, this is helpful. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, of course, Nick. Um, Anybody else got any questions? Or is there anything that's on your mind when it comes to marketing or AI? I'm assuming you joined this call for some reason. I'm hoping you got a lot out of the prompt, but if there's anything else like that.
I do have some curiosity around how marketing itself is changing, right? Like, so, right, a lot of it is still geared towards basically the browser, right? Like, so SEO, PPC. And with AI, a lot of the requests now are coming through, your chat models. And so I'm just, I guess, curious on my own, is it changing in any way? Is it like, how do you get to rank in ChatGPT or Claude, right? If someone's looking for something in my neighborhood.
That's a good question. What type of business are you looking at? I can give you an example in Google of like how.
I'm looking at service businesses as well. So typically, like, just for example, the one we're looking at right now is a restaurant, commercial restaurant business. So where they do fit ups specifically for the restaurant niche.
Yeah. So do they help restaurants set things up, or are they kind of like a caterer, if you will, making a mass amount of
Oh, no,
food?
no, renovations, but specifically in the restaurant space.
Okay. So let's see. Let me share this. All right. So I'm going to get a little bit into how I've learned large language models work, or like the underlaying stuff for ChatGPT. This isn't like literal word for word. Like, I don't have like a way to look into the black box of how they do things specifically. They're very nuanced, much smarter and more technical than I will ever be. So I'm just going to preface that right away. But here's a basic example. So say for restaurant renovations, or there's different factors. So one thing you can see, there's the SEO listings down here, and then there's this stuff up here for Gemini, which I like to visualize because it's a basic way of seeing how an AI model or like a generative engine optimization works for ChatGPT or something similar. So this is what it believes is a proper answer for you. You can get this a little bit in AI mode as well too, which I'm not going into because this is a better visual representation in my opinion. But you have all this stuff, and it has sources for these different things. Something I found interesting according to Pew Research for some of my clients is most people, like, this shows up for most questions or prompts related to like something they're looking to do, a how-to or things of that nature. And what it's done is it's basically halved the click-through rate in the industry for different searches, because most people will get these answers and only 1% actually click through on any of these links. So like, by that I mean there's this link, right, for renovating your restaurant. There's these different things here. Usually people just take this at face value unless they're a really, really informed searcher. And if they are clicking through, it's more likely that that's probably the person you're looking for to a certain degree. So there's still a benefit, brand awareness and such, but that's one thing, is it's cutting down click-through rates for this stuff, as you might imagine, because people get their answers here right away. For something like what you're talking about, there's probably a longer sales cycle. They consider different things. If they're doing some search like this, there's probably some thing that they want to learn a little more about. For you or for somebody else to get ranked here, I mean, this is where I like having the course, for example, like the course materials to help like generate some of this stuff. You need to have your content first. So it's kind of like having an account with a keyword or a certain audience or something like that. Without the content, there's nothing to rank on SEO or on GEO as well too. So having it's the first step. The other thing is having something that's more organic to a degree, conversational, has some smaller snippets. This is where the large language model stuff comes into play. So the way it works is it's basically a linear regression. So like how AI models work is it's a neural net. So to know about a neural net, you need to know about linear regression. And what linear regression is it takes different factors to compare how statistically significant they are in comparison. So just trying to think of a random example here. Like, let's say if I wear a black shirt every day, I'm going to be able to find a dollar on the street. There's probably no correlation to that whatsoever. But if you walk to a certain part of the street, so I'm walking next to a bank, that's probably much more of a correlation, right? Just random example off the top of my head.
Yeah, I see.
The point with a neural net is instead of you inputting those values for what to compare, it will create synthetic values based upon your data and what it knows. So it scours the web, it scours like its own internal processes and data to then say, let's compare these different things and make synthetic values. Like a classic example I had in school and then with some clients, this is more operationally speaking for a business, not marketing, but say if you wanted to keep more people in your business, so you wanted to send offers like email offers only to people that are likely to churn, what Claude or a neural net will do is compare different values for you and then share, all right, what's the most statistically significant likelihood that this person's going to churn? And then, okay, then you should send them an offer of some kind. And that's where the testing comes into place. So like, what offer do I send? The point of this is it synthesized down all this data. So Gemini synthesized all this data from the web for this like specific prompt and said, this is the best information. The funny thing I find about it, so a few things with this is one, Reddit and where it gets its information are shown more. So what's feeding Gemini a lot is Reddit and YouTube. So you'll likely see more Reddit and YouTube. So if you're on Reddit and YouTube, you should be in this more often. Is one thing.
Like sites with more engagement. So, you know, where say you have a channel on YouTube and people are commenting on it or you know, whatever that topic is popping up on Reddit a lot more than I guess it sounds like the model will prefer that and give it a higher value.
Yeah, exactly. So it gets its data from those different channels more. The other thing is from an SEO perspective, which impacts GEO, generative engine optimization, is a helpful content update. So it wants something that sounds more human. So it wants humans answering other human questions. So say if you are a prior restaurant owner that did a renovation and you have an answer about it, that's why it uses those channels or why it looks at YouTube, because it wants some informed insights. Sometimes you'll see a video placed here instead of a link for that reason alone as well too. The other thing that's interesting about it is it will change its answer constantly because it's constantly rerunning the model. Maybe not like in a given day, but a given week or a month. If there's new content or if like there's an update to its algo, it will adjust things. But that's my long way of saying it. The short answer here is this is very helpful. I would first have the content. Like for a keyword you're trying to rank for, make sure you have that content. The second thing is once you do have that content, try to put some form of it onto different organic social channels. Ideally have some video content, just a way to become a little more conversational and get a little more engagement, whether it's through paid stuff like Meta or organic stuff like YouTube. And the third thing is have smaller snippets of information on your content as well too, to answer frequently asked questions and look up this stuff to say like, okay, like this is how Gemini answers it. I really ought to have different parts about planning and budgeting, design and layout, like all this stuff. Like say if you don't have one of these things, make sure you include it and edit your content.
Okay.
There's more to it, of course, but those would be the three starting points.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like you know, you acquire business, you got to step up your marketing, right? Like get your name and get your name out there and get your people talking about your business. Probably, I'm thinking reviews is probably a good way to do that too. Like just really pushing reviews and getting customers to, you know, write how they felt about the service you delivered. Probably will rank a lot higher on Geo. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's like a lot of different ways. That's one way, certainly. It's a good differentiator as well, too. So besides just showing up, it's a great thing to include once people go to your site, so that we have some social proofing, so people know like, hey, I've used this service, I like it, so on and so forth.
Right.
But what this course can do is accentuates what you currently have. What the premium support can do is, say if you don't have much going on, or it's like a weakness in the business, you can help get it set up without having to do as much trial and error with different agencies, or say if the agency on the account isn't as great, you can work with us to improve things that way as well too. But either way, that's where I see AI being very useful, is essentially you can get more out of your time. Plus, if you have the right knowledge, you can really like improve your marketing even further.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Very cool.
Good luck with your search for a commercial restaurant. Where are you looking?
Yeah. DC area.
Not commercial restaurant, renovation. But yeah, cool. Good luck. Besides that, anybody else have anything they're looking at or curious about from a marketing perspective?
Oliver, I had one question for you. And again, thanks for all this information. And I came in a few minutes late, so forgive me if this was already there. But when you went through that workflow prompt that you had for ads, is that more specific to Meta, or does it apply to Google as well?
Here, let me go through one more. So it applies to whatever channel you want it to apply to, which is the cool thing here. When you walk through this, if it doesn't walk you through it, I would also say, hey, walk me through each of these steps to help me set up this project. You can just do this on your own as well too without Claude, and just put it into a workflow. But what this is for is pretty much any channel, as you kind of see here, like there's Meta, LinkedIn, like whatever you want to use it for, pretty much where it's applicable.
Okay, got it. Nope, thank you so much. See all that now on the side. Perfect. Thank you.
And you'll have access to all this right after this as well.
Great.
Sean, you got a question?
Yeah, Oliver. So you kind of gave this example just a little bit ago, where in Gemini, right? You're going to look for something, you're going to Google something, and you even mentioned that it's actually lowering the click-through rate on source destinations, right? Instead of people going to those websites to read something and seeing a banner ad or a video ad or something, they're just going to get their information from Gemini or other AI. Do you see, I guess I'm wondering, as far as an industry or how is it changing advertisements, if Google ads and stuff are going to become less relevant in that sense? Do you see like direct email campaigns as increasing, or other forms of advertising?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to answer the first part, then give like the real answer. The first part is I don't know, because I have no clue how it's going to turn out and all that good stuff. Like on one Google call, when Google was sharing its first like AI overviews and how it's going to work with Gemini, they had a boombox example for like selling a boombox on Google. What they had, which was both good and bad, in my opinion, was they had this different stuff. So like options. So you can just go through it if like it shows up. Okay, so it's not quite showing it as you can see here, but what it had before is like it had like search criteria for a boombox and then 3 options, and one of those options was an ad, but it wasn't labeled as an ad, which was interesting. So on one hand, I believe this is where AI mode is going to go to a certain extent. Mind you, this is why I say I don't know. But yeah, so the interesting thing is the ads will still have a place to play, because that's where Google gets over 90% of its revenue. They would be pretty dumb to get rid of ads and just say, oh, let's just use Gemini and just let people post whatever they feel like, and that will be that. They're going to have ads in some form unless they find a new way to monetize their business. It'll probably be labeled instead. So like what they do right now is there's a label for sponsored content or like ads, and then it shows the different ads from there. There's likely to be some stuff layered in throughout with AI. So like that could be a factor with some of the AI content for SEO, assuming the ads don't show up at all, which, like I said, there's a monetary incentive. So it would be very surprising if like these tools didn't. Even ChatGPT, for example, it's kind of like Facebook before they had ads. Like for a while they didn't, and then all of a sudden they added ads and made a bunch of money. Once they reach a certain user base like Netflix, for example, was a good case of this. There's too much of a monetary incentive not to, and there really is an equivalent business model, in my opinion, yet. This is just an opinion, but I think there's still a place for it, especially if there's utility. And the reason people pay for it, like you or another business owner, is because you get some sort of result. Ideally, it's something like you pay for this, great, you get a sale, you get a call, you get a meeting booked, something of value. For organic, I think it's the same thing I mentioned before. It's just like over time, it will evolve where it's a little less transparent here, but there's more documentation on it, so you can still figure out how to put this information here. That's why I created the course as well too, overall. So like one part is I have this initial course with the 6 modules and things of that nature. The next thing I want to do over time is add in things like different agents and different information on this stuff, because I think it's going to be very valuable, and that's where marketing is going to go. Is it's going to be more useful. People will likely just use the thing that answers their question right away. Like most people tend not to be as curious, according to the initial research. Like that might change, who knows? But as a result, there's still some learning that needs to happen with the user to figure out how they engage with things, what they engage most with, and what they like. Because the other thing that happens as well too, which will probably happen with AI like it has before, is if you sell more things, like say if you're selling a boombox and you're the most sold boombox, people really like you, you're more likely to show up in the top of the results versus other folks, because Google wants to give people things that it can engage with really, really well. And that's going to be the same thing with AI or not. But the point is, AI is going to evolve, and how it shows us this information is going to be pretty interesting. Like one of my original thoughts, like this is years ago, is that vocal search was going to take over a lot more of this share. So vocal search is like, say if you type in your phone, like say you're looking for directions, it's a classic vocal search to say like, show me how to get to the nearest pizza place or something like that. I figured that was going to take over a lot more because it's so convenient. But again, it varies a lot on the intent about how people look at things. Like, for example, the average user looks at 5 different car models before buying a new car. That's probably not going to change with AI or not. All AI is going to do is make it easier to look at those 5 different models. But I'm hoping that helps.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking it's probably going to affect content monetization more so than like service or product monetization.
Yes. If it's not an immediate demand, it's going to vary a little bit based upon that, or you'll need to find some way to layer it in here. That's why I like video, for example, because sometimes Gemini will show the video. So if like you have some way to monetize inside the video, as long as it shows up in Gemini or ChatGPT or wherever, then it can be a little easier to monetize. But it's definitely going to be a consideration going down the line.
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah, of course. Anything else like that? We're almost at time anyways, but yeah, I think it's like definitely important considerations here with whatever you're doing for your marketing, whether you use this course or not. AI is definitely going to be a foundational thing for a lot of your businesses, from a consumer side and from what you do within your own business. I'd recommend even just having a little bit of knowledge of this stuff is going to be very important. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have any other questions, obviously feel free to set up some time or just ask me. I'm happy to help. But any final questions, thoughts? Once, twice? No. Yeah. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. If you do have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, appreciate you showing up, and hopefully you got something out of this. I'll share the prompt with Andy, and Andy will have all the information that I promised for you guys. And then if you have any questions on the course or just anything in particular for a business you're looking at, just feel free to reach out. All right. Take care, y'all.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thanks, Oliver.